test. Hello, my name is Dejan Mirkovic, and I represent airG Wireless. We are a mobile social publisher, and we basically have tons of active users around the world, and we use the data to deliver the right message to the right audience. So today we're going to talk about mobile social and why it's exciting. It's really changing. Mobile is really reinventing social media, so we're going to talk about how that's happening, and we have a great group of panelists right now. They're all experts, and we're going to share some interesting views of how this is changing. So I just quickly want to share a couple of things about mobile social. Number one, the scale. Over 800 million people a month are using mobile social on their devices for up to 10 hours a month, so it's huge. And really, if you take a look at ComScore, mobile social is the #1 activity on a smartphone. So now I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves, and we'll start with Angela.
Hi, I'm Angela Lester. I'm a managing partner of mobile behavior as well as Tribal DDB, which allows me on one side for mobile behavior to really look at how people engage with mobile as a whole, and then on the Tribal side to really develop that out into actual engagement platforms.
Hi, I'm Ed Brojerdi. I'm the president and co-chief creative officer of KBS. That's Kirshenbaum Bond Senecal Partner, a New York-based ad agency. I'm also the founder of our creative technology unit, SPIES, and that is the unit that focuses on mobile development, strategy insight, as well as production.
Hi, Ali Rana. I'm representing Dynamic Logic and our parent company, Millard Brown. We are a full-service market research firm. On the Dynamic Logic side, we specialize in measuring really ad effectiveness across all digital platforms, and I run a group really focused on mobile and social.
Hey guys, my name is Mike Parker. I'm Chief Digital Officer for creative agency McCann Erickson, responsible for North America and our global clients. So we are one of the largest ad networks in the world and work with major brands, build their brands, and I'm trying to, part of a team that's trying to evolve our capabilities and the type of work that we do for our clients to push much harder and faster into the digital and mobile and social spaces.
Perfect, thank you. So let's actually start with the first question for the panel. So what's really different about mobile social? What are the new behavioral changes that you're using from a user's activity? Like, what are they doing different compared to online to mobile?
Well, what we've seen is that mobile enables real contextual activities. So people like to do things that relate to the moment they're in, the place they're at, and then share it out to their friends. So it's very different than when they're online, where they spend a little bit more time really reading posts and kind of delving into that social experience. So good examples are taking a picture and sharing it. You might be going out for dinner with somebody and sharing the bill over a social app, things like that. So it's really the difference between something quick, effective, and contextual and location-based versus really spending that time to do research or really engage in the platform.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think we talked a lot about this, where the need state is really at the forefront of what someone is doing on mobile. And we talk about, are they walking with mobile, or are they seated with mobile, and those kinds of things. And one of the examples we talk about with one of our clients, BMW, the behavior that takes place on the lot with the cars and what people are doing and the pictures they're taking of the options list and so on and so forth. So we leverage some of those behaviors and we attempt to turn that into some value-added utilities for them.
I think I totally agree with that. One thing I would just toss in is frequency-related stuff. So, if you're looking in sort of social commerce or something where there's time limitations on deals, this offer is only available for a period of time and people are checking it rapidly. You see a lot more frequency in mobile than on desktop web.
Yeah, I mean, to add to that, I think that mobile brings, you're absolutely right, this layer of obviously contextual relevance, but mobile, so social without mobile is like driving a Ferrari on like bicycle tires, because it doesn't really make any sense. Look at what these guys at Foursquare are doing. Look at what Twitter has done, and look at what Facebook is trying to do. I mean, without mobile, none of the social platforms that will be able to grow and scale the way they have.
Perfect. We'll go to the next question. So let's talk about location specifically, and how is location changing social media, and how are brands leveraging this data?
I mean, you can talk about Foursquare, right? Foursquare is the easiest example to talk about where, based on your specific location at your time of check-in, you're being incentivized, you're being rewarded. And I think as we all look at this, that's sort of a current example of what's happening. But when we're looking at some of this new geofencing technology, and really that was a limitation of us opting in, and that was us pulling out our phone and saying, we are here, let me check in to see what offers are happening. But as we become more and more open to that kind of information being transparent to the world, I think we'll start seeing that passively happen. And then that's when that data starts becoming really powerful based on, without me even realizing, oh, I'm walking by a supermarket and my other app that had my shopping list is there. Let me get a trigger that says these 3 items on your list are now 10% off.
Yeah, I mean, the future that we paint or looking forward to is sort of the Minority Report scenario, right? Where you're walking around and you're getting all these cool things happening to you, and Foursquare is one of the companies that is really trying to bring that to the forefront. But they're doing some pretty interesting things where, based on your behavior, you may get so if you're coming from the gym, you may get a coupon for a granola bar versus, if it's late night, perhaps you're getting French fries or water. That kind of this kind of contextual behavior based on what you're doing is interesting. But I think the key is that this type of stuff is not easy. I mean, I saw Dennis Crowley speak in the morning, co-founder of Foursquare, and they consider themselves as a big data company. I mean, to be able to mine all this data and to create solutions out of that is going to be tricky, but the future looks good there.
I think I would just add one thing. I think what's interesting today, which is I think generally arrived versus Minority Report, which is probably at least a few more months off for us, is this notion of within and without, like proximity to a retailer or proximity to a store. Whether it's geofencing or your location-based data, where we can use it and say, hey, you're within a certain parameter of this location versus within, right? So you see what Shopkick and other people are doing, incentivizing behaviors once you're within the store as well, and differentiating location down to what can you actually do when knowing the consumer's standing in front of the shelf, what can you do there versus, hey, I know you live in this neighborhood or you're walking by.
Yeah, what we've seen is we've tried to, leverage some of that information that a lot of people are doing the research to buy something on their desktop, and then when they actually get to the store, they get confused. So we do things like, for example, vitamins and minerals. Like if you try and figure out which vitamins are right for you and standing in front of a shelf, you'll be completely confused. So how do you take that research that they perhaps did on a different platform and bring it into the store itself? So that's one thing we're trying to figure out. That's very important. The other thing to keep in mind are simple things that people don't think about, such as local search. We're really thinking about the fact that a lot of people are searching for an actual location of a store or a certain product while they're on the go. And the ability to really refine local search in a way that when you get the results, you have a click to call, a click to map, and even some of the really contextual reviews, or even knowing whether your friends have gone to that particular store. Those are the type of things that are going to help drive conversion and are important to consider.
Just to add one point to your thing about standing in front of the shelf, I think that is something that we definitely talk a lot about. And we always talk about mobile and social as a spillover from other channels of, oh, what's your TV idea, or what's your sort of web or microsite idea, and how is it going to impact mobile? But for us, if you take that situation, we think there's an upstream movement of how it affects it. So for BMW at auto shows, it matters to us if you're standing in front of a 3 Series versus a 7 Series, right? And that's going to affect our direct mail to you and some of our CRM practices that are currently not mobile or social and any of those things. So there's really an interesting sort of back and forth flow of that data.
Very cool. The next question relates to actually engagement. Do we feel that mobile is actually helping increase social engagement? And are there any metrics that you can kind of share with the audience of any proof points that show that this is happening?
I think, you said this earlier, many of our social platforms only exist because of mobile. You look at Instagram. I'm not uploading Instagram pics when I'm sitting in my apartment by myself. It's when there's a catalyst, I'm out and about, I'm being inspired, I see something that I want to share with the world. And I feel mobile in the social space really helps generate content. We talk a lot about people who are sort of creating content, viewing content, so on and so forth. Mobile, you're generating, you're making things, and that's a big deal.
Okay. Now let's talk about actually some of these new experiences that are emerging. Like social discovery now is a mass market product. What are some of the new experiences, social experiences that are emerging that you're excited about, and how can a brand engage in these social experiences?
I think for me, trying to connect real-world behavior to social and mobile engagement. So, you know, I think people have been playing mobile games and engaging in that kind of an environment. It's been a lot of what we've started with in terms of engagement has been very virtual. But I don't know how many people know this company out in San Francisco called Keep, right? I think they're thinking about how do you take real-world behaviors of consumers, like somebody who's on a fitness program is trying to get in 3 workouts a week, or you know, thinking about their health and nutrition and trying to track and eat better. And you know, through that kind of an app that you're using to help keep track of that behavior, you can come in and a brand can engage with you by your achievements and by what you've accomplished and help you share that and reward in that. So I think, to me, this idea of physical behavior enabled by social sharing through the mobile channel is really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, social discovery is tricky. So at a person level, social discovery is very creepy, right? I mean, why would I want to get to know some random people around me? I mean, I know I'm around people, but there's still this creepiness factor. And that's probably not going to get removed anytime soon. But the idea that I can use social to discover new things is still something that, you know, I mean, I can use social to discover, and social mobile to discover new restaurants or perhaps new running paths, etc. Things that are sort of low on the creepiness scale, definitely. And I think brands can sort of have a nice little play there, but on a social discovery of people is still, that's a very, very gray area.
You know what's interesting about that, and we talked about this previously on the social discovery of people. Right now, it's very sort of algorithm-based, as we discussed, right? This person is 0.3 miles away from you, and they're in advertising, and they're in social, so you two should talk. And I think what's exciting is what's going to happen when the sort of serendipity comes into play with that. Mm-hmm. When I know if I want to connect to you. I know that deep down. I don't need an algorithm to tell me that. Mm-hmm. But currently, I might lack the tools that make that simple to do. And you know, look at an example that's been out there for many years, which is Craigslist missed connections. These are people desperate of, hey, please come to Craigslist, come to this section. I hope you saw me, and I hope you remember this scenario. If there was a way to capture that transaction, that communication that happened between people, that is a serendipitous sort of situation, but technology can help sort of resolve that.
Yeah, I agree.
Great. We'll move on to the next question. How is mobile changing how marketer and a brand social media strategy? Like, what are the key differences when you're actually building a campaign and wanting to send it out on mobile?
For us, the thing that we consider is that it truly forces us not to think of social as a channel and look at the user, what their needs, what their behaviors are, and try and understand what's untapped and how can we connect with what they need. So it really creates almost like an innovation opportunity, but it comes from the user first. So rather than think about, let's try and do something social, let's try and do something mobile, it really forces you to think about what is that user doing, what do they need, and essentially what part of that can be triggered through a social mobile strategy.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, it's just another territory and platform to gather insights, right, of behavior. And you were talking about this earlier, and a lot of it is if someone is in a fitting room and they're taking a picture of the outfit they're trying on and texting it to their girlfriend, how do we broaden that? That is a behavior that they're naturally doing. Great, awesome. How do we leverage that and turn that into something that Puma or any other retailer is doing for that person in the fitting room? So for us, it's not necessarily how to create something new. It's just to tap into something that's happening and to leverage it.
I agree. I think the best mobile ideas that I've seen in the past or currently see almost always have a social component built into them because it is so easy to share from your mobile device. Whether it's, and what I haven't seen is sort of shareable advertising per se, but sort of a bigger mobile idea always has sharing built into it. And I think that is if you want it to be successful, that's kind of a cost of entry at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's building on what you guys have said, but I think there's two core areas when we're thinking about developing a campaign or initiative these days is really focusing on participation and content in the mobile space. So how do you make sure that whatever content you're creating is, it sounds stupid, but is easily viewable through mobile channels? It's formatted rightly, you know, it's easy to share. And participation, what you know, if your MasterCard and your platform is priceless, how can a consumer interact and participate with that through mobile channels, and making sure that all of our creative teams and technology people are thinking about those two principles?
Yeah, just to add to that, I think you're absolutely right. I see a lot of, you know, on the retail side, I see a lot of retailers offering deals with using some social channels, but a lot of those links resolve to desktop experiences, and the mobile experiences technically fail because their site isn't optimized or the deal isn't structured that way, and you've lost a customer. A big customer potentially. So you're absolutely right. I mean, I think that synergy is in there, and it'd be great to have everything linked.
All right. The next question is, you know, as a marketer for a brand, and mobile social gives you a ton of data. What type of data are you using today and extracting from these mobile social networks to actually make sure that the marketing message you deliver is relevant to the end user?
You know, I think one of the things we did recently, we launched a mobile app. You know, BMW was launching an electric vehicle, and one of the things that we garnered, one of the reasons people do not buy electric vehicles, they're worried about range anxiety. They're worried that the car is going to run out of juice when they're crossing the bridge. So we leveraged that, and for us, it was utility. It was data around utility, and in essence, we used the GPS, the accelerometer, the weather, and things like that sits on this sort of mobile personal computer you have to determine, are you eligible for this car? You know, so we went right at utility, and we launched an app. So, you know, earlier we talked about advertising in mobile space. Is that app an ad? Could be, right? But it provided some value, and it was open to anyone to download. It was free. You don't have to be a BMW driver, a potential BMW driver, and it mitigated a concern people had. And for us, that's somewhat successful in the mobile space, you know?
One of our clients is IKEA. And they came to us 6 or 8 months ago and said, look, you know, we produced the second most printed and read book in the world, publication, in the IKEA catalog, second only to the Bible in the world, right? How do you actually bring the catalog into the mobile era, and how do you bring it into the socially enabled era? So if you look at this year's, the 2012, 2013 catalog, there's mobile icons throughout it. You download an app, and you can actually interact directly with the content. There's a whole layer of additional content that you get. So for the first time, IKEA is actually able to understand, what do consumers really do with the catalog? What do they like? What do they interact with? Where do they spend time? And when we're able to layer on that additional content, like you see a room and then you can, you know, flip through and see it in different colors or different setups, how much of that incremental content and experience is the user engaging with? And so it's building us a huge amount of information that we're going to be able to use to continue to evolve the catalog experience as it goes more and more digital.
Very cool. Last question, and then we'll go to some questions from the audience. Can we just quickly share some best practices in actually executing a mobile campaign, and specifically on mobile social, if you have any suggestions?
So I'll give an example. We've done a few iAds, you know, and that's been an interesting experience for us, because you could almost say that the iAd is sort of this bridge between what is traditional advertising, banner advertising, and some rich functionality. And really our goal there was to not just do a banner ad that's very expensive, but we brought over, in essence, microsite experiences into the iAd. So we brought in configurators. We had you selecting the color and the wheels and the leather, and in essence having this small micro experience that you would have on the desktop site, as opposed to just showing a pretty picture of a car and so on and so forth. So I think we're still in an immature landscape here, and everyone is determining how to utilize this stuff. But the easiest thing to do was, let's monetize something we already know, which is advertising. Let's bring it right over. But I think it's up to us and everyone in this room to sort of make it a little bit better.
I can share some very specific examples of kind of mobile display. Mobile display is not hard to do. And amongst all the research that we've done, we've been in the space for about 4 years now, almost done about 400 studies across really big advertisers and small advertisers across many networks. We see a disparities. There's some mobile ads that are just simply not good, and there's some that are actually very good. And the ones that distinguish the good and the bad, the creative ideas are actually very simple. They just have persistent branding. They show product shots. mobile works, and the reason why it works is because the targeting on mobile is so much better than online, and with some of the social signals, you can actually target that mobile creative even better. But keep your display idea simple. I know it's a very, very specific example on mobile display, and mobile is broader than that, but my plea is always to keep the ideas consistent, simple. We get a lot of ads that basically have no logo, no brand name, and maybe 5 different colors in it. And people say, hey, this is our genesis of our mobile campaign. We say, you don't even need to test this with us because I can tell you what's going to happen. But brands do test it with them. So just keep it simple.
Yeah.
For us, it's been about thinking about a journey. So for example, a lot of the ideas that typically come out of agencies are very campaign specific, as in they start and they end. And one of the things to think about when you do social mobile is that you're going to make a real connection with somebody. And that connection may have real utility over a period of time. And you have to think about how to evolve it. It's almost like a whole new business idea, where you're enabling a new service potentially for a company that wasn't able to deliver that service without mobile and social being relevant. And if you think about that, you have to really think about how do you maintain it? How do you make sure the content stays relevant? If the community starts falling short, how do you make sure that it gets active again? If technologies change, so for one of the examples, obviously, are we're seeing right now that check-in services are still happening, but they're not as exciting. So we have to think about how do we get people to opt in more so that they're really willing to be part of that experience with you. So to me, it's almost like looking at CRM in the old days and really thinking about it in a new way, where this thing that you're building, A, gives you insight into that customer 24/7, and B, you need to be able to react to that and really think about the longevity of what you're building and how you can really extend it into something that has a life.
I would just throw in one real quick thing. You know, outside of developing campaigns and extending your campaigns to online advertising, I think when we create stuff in mobile applications or what have you, really try to focus on answering the question, what need does this meet? I think mobile is still suffering a little bit from just because you canism. And I think if we sit back and say, what's the friction point, what's the opportunity, what need does this actually fulfill for the consumer so that they will opt in and that they will use it? So I think as an industry, we're churning out a lot of crap right now that consumers are just not using because it's not meeting any value, it's not meeting any need or creating any value.
Perfect. Do we have any questions from the audience?
All right, that's my cue. You guys are on time. I love this. All right. Any questions from the audience? Come on, at least, oh, there's one. Someone asked Mike Parker a question, something really hard, really hard. Or Ali, because, he's head scientist. I mean, come on.
Dennis Tyrell from Random House. It actually is from Michael. You mentioned the IKEA catalog a wee bit ago. In that discussion, what were the measures of success for engagement with that? Would it be the amount of people that actually click through to certain items in the catalog or shares? What was the conversation around that in general, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. I think we were looking at a number of things, right? So they hadn't really had an engagement element to the catalog before. It was just a flat print publication. So one of the questions we had is, will people engage with this? People love the IKEA catalog, but will people spend more time with it? Will people engage with it more? And what kinds of stuff do they want to see, right? So we tested, if you see it and you use how much will people download the app actually, because you have to go out of your way and download the app. And then once you've done that, what different types of content do people value? So it says a lot about the individual customers, but also in aggregate, what kind of content is it that consumers want? Is it, more room setups where you can see the furniture in action, so to speak, or what is the type of rich experience that they're looking for? We're trying to learn a lot right now. I mean, clearly IKEA wants to move away from so much dependency on print, and what is the digital IKEA catalog of the future look like? So we're just starting to lay the groundwork to learn about what consumers want.
All right. Any other questions? And then, you just made it under the wire. Jeez, you're lucky. All right.
Yeah, I actually had a question just Graham Mosley, Motion Mobile, mobile ad serving platforms. Just had a question about the rich media with the iAds and the experience. Why did you choose to go with iAds instead of kind of a cross-platform style play of a standard rich media?
Sure. We were developing in that situation specifically for iOS devices, and that provided the richest sort of toolkit for us. We were able to get some really advanced functionality, and part of it was we were co-developing some of this stuff with Apple. The team wanted to pull in some social information off of Facebook wall and sort of pre-populate that into some of the fields, and when users were doing some things like shaking their phone, it would change some of the messaging. And for us, the iAd provided the toolkits and the code bases to allow that to happen, and some of the other tools just weren't mature in that specific situation.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, guys. Mr. Parker, thank you very much. My head scientist, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you very much. All right.